The story of Sweden, from Ice Age origins to global innovator. Long before it became a model of modern prosperity, Sweden's story began in the icy grip of the last ice age. As glaciers retreated around 12,000 years ago, they revealed a rugged, fertile landscape. The first humans were hunter-gatherers from continental Europe who arrived shortly after. These early settlers gradually adapted to the land, fishing, hunting, and eventually farming. By 4000 BCE, the Neolithic people of Sweden had formed complex societies, leaving behind stone structures, burial mounds, and mysterious petroglyphs, some of which are still visible today in places like Tanum. Around 500 CE, Germanic tribes had begun to shape the Swedish identity. The Svea people settled in central Sweden, particularly around Lake Mälaren, and gave rise to the name Sverige, Sweden, which means realm of the sphere. Meanwhile, the Götar lived in the south. These groups eventually united, forming the early foundations of the Swedish kingdom. The Viking Age, roughly 800 to 1050 CE, marked a dramatic chapter. Swedish Vikings were known less for raiding and more for exploration and trade, so they say. They sailed across the Baltic Sea and navigated the rivers of Russia, establishing trade routes to Byzantium and the Islamic world. The city of Birka became a major trading hub during this period. These Norse seafarers left their mark far beyond their borders, laying the groundwork for Sweden's early global connections. By the 12th century, Christianity had taken root, and Sweden began to centralize politically. In 1397, Sweden entered the Kalmar Union with Denmark and Norway as a united monarchy that eventually fell apart due to internal conflicts. Sweden's departure from the Union in 1523, under Gustav Vasa, marked the true birth of modern Sweden. Vasa became king and led Sweden through the Protestant Reformation, breaking ties with the Catholic Church and established Lutheranism as the national religion. Over the next 2 centuries, Sweden rose to become a major European power. During the 17th century, it participated in the 30 Years' War and expanded its territory across the Baltic region. The empire reached its height under King Charles X and Charles XI, but it was Charles XII's disastrous wars, especially the Great Northern War, 1700 to 1721, against Russia that signaled Sweden's imperial decline. In the 19th century, Sweden shifted away from war toward reform. After losing Finland to Russia in 1809 and enduring internal upheavals, the country adopted a new constitution and eventually entered a union with Norway in 1814. This peaceful partnership lasted until 1905, when Norway became independent. Sweden maintained neutrality during both world wars, a position that allowed it to avoid devastation and focus on internal development. The 20th century saw the rise of the Swedish welfare state, a model known as folkhemmet, or the people's home. Universal healthcare, free education, strong labour protections, and social equality became cornerstones of Swedish society. Today, Sweden is known globally for its innovation, environmental consciousness, and high quality of life. It is home to major international brands like IKEA, Volvo, Spotify. The country consistently ranks among the top in global happiness, education, and press freedom indices. Economically, Sweden has a mixed market system that balances free market capitalism with a strong welfare state. Major industries include automotive, telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, forestry, and green energy. Sweden is also a leader in tech startups and sustainability. Its trading partners include Germany, Norway, the United States, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Sweden's population, around 10.5 million, is relatively small but diverse. Large cities like its capital, Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmö are cosmopolitan and growing. Immigration has contributed to Sweden's demographic shifts, with significant populations from Syria, Iraq, Somalia and other parts of the Middle East and Africa. Sweden also recognizes the indigenous Sami people who have lived in the northern regions for thousands of years. Swedish is the official language, but English is widely spoken. Other recognized minority languages include Finnish, meänkieli, Tornedalian Finnish, Romani, Yiddish, and Sami. The multicultural landscape is reflected in food, music, and public life. Speaking of food, Sweden is famous for its comforting and practical cuisine. Staples include meatballs with lingonberry sauce, gravlax aka cured salmon, riksmörgås aka shrimp sandwich, and surströmming or fermented herring, which is a controversial delicacy due to its strong odour. Cinnamon buns, kanelbulle, are a beloved treat, especially during the daily fika, a coffee and pastry break that's deeply embedded in Swedish culture. Sweden boasts stunning natural and architectural landmarks. From the northern Aurora Borealis and the Ice Hotel in Jukkasjärvi to the royal palaces of Stockholm and the medieval town of Visby on Gotland Island, there's a rich blend of wilderness and history. The Vasa Museum, showcasing a 17th century warship salvaged nearly intact, and Skansen, the world's oldest open-air museum, a cultural must-sees. Sweden is a member of the European Union since 1995, but it has not adopted the euro and retains the krona as its currency. Although it long upheld military neutrality, Sweden's alliances are shifting. After decades of non-alignment, it applied to join NATO in 2022, signalling a historic change in security policy in response to regional threats. Sweden has largely avoided major wars since the Napoleonic era, focusing instead on diplomacy, peacekeeping, and humanitarian work. It's contributed to UN missions and served as a host for Nobel Peace Prize-related ceremonies. Fun facts about Sweden. The Nobel Prizes were established by Swedish inventor Alfred Nobel. More than half of Sweden is covered in forest. Sweden recycles nearly 99% of its waste. Parental leave is among the most generous in the world, up to 480 days shared between parents. Sweden was the first country in the world to ban corporal punishment of children in 1979. Some of Sweden's social and economic problems include integration of immigrants and refugees, as Sweden has accepted a high number of refugees and asylum seekers, especially since the 2015 migrant crisis. Many newcomers face barriers to integration, including language, employment and housing. This has contributed to social segregation in some urban areas, increased strain on public services, and fueled political debates about immigration policy and national identity. Another dominant issue is the housing shortage and rising prices. There is a chronic shortage of affordable housing, particularly in major cities like Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmö. There are long waiting lists for rental apartments, and skyrocketing property prices have made it hard for young people and low-income families to find stable housing. This increases economic inequality and can hinder social mobility. Finally, gang violence and organised crime plague Sweden. Sweden has seen a rise in gang-related violence, including shootings and bombings, especially in urban suburbs. These incidents are often linked to drug trafficking, socio-economic inequality, and lack of opportunities in marginalised communities. This issue increases public safety concerns, political pressure for tougher criminal justice policies, and growing distrust in authorities in affected areas. As the 21st century unfolds, Sweden continues to balance tradition and progress. It remains a country rooted in its storied past, yet always looking forward. An example of how a small Nordic nation can make a big impact on the world.